tonight, and I will say 7-3 and turn it over to K4HQ, Ken in Gray. Take her away, Ken. KO1ZA.
Okay, Jim. Good evening to everybody. K4HQ. Sorry I didn't get to know Jack. Sounds like a really cool guy. I wish I could have known him. That would have been a good CW call, too. A little bit long, but a good one, though. Especially JME. That would have been really good on CW. As far as the topic, one of my favorites was Cleveland's Clearwater Revival's Cosmos Factory. I wore that out until, well, I think I finally, I know I couldn't play it anymore. Old final. It was even scratchy when I got it, but I still played it till I wore it out. And Jim, if you are still listening, I think I might even have a copy of Live Bullet in my collection somewhere. I have collected so many albums and stuff over the years. I'm very familiar with that album, yes indeedy. Ralph, over to you, N4XRD, K4HQ. Good night, all.
This is N4XRD. Good evening, all. And I will miss Jack. I believe my dad knew him quite well. I will miss his smiling face for sure. Can't say too much, I get choked up. First record I ever bought as a youngster at a whopping age of 9 years old. Don't know how I even came up with the money. My brother probably conspired to help me. But I bought a recording of Ghost Riders in the Sky by the Ramrods. On the other side, I remember well, the side B was Zigzag. And I don't remember much after that one of buying 45s, but it was kind of a rockabilly version of it. About 10 years later, and maybe not 10 years later, 7 or 8 years later, I thought that a person should every day listen to Country Joe and the Fish, and the album that I preferred was Electric Music for Your Mind and Body. Now that's kind of lunatic fringe stuff there. 2 years after that, I was really into leaving the James Gang sitting on the turntable overnight. I'd wake up in the morning and I'd turn on my Lafayette amp and reach over and hit the start on my Gerard turntable, which powered my homemade speakers with Utah drivers in them. That was my component stereo back in the day. Anyway, I thought that I should wake up every morning to hearing Funk 49. And it just had a great start, and it would get me humming and somehow to cause my feet to hit the floor a little easier. Boy, all those were many years ago now. I was trying to think of any record that I bought twice because I wore it out, but I don't know if I ever really did. With that, I'll hand it over to David. KO4GQQ from N4XRD.
N4XRD, KO4GQQ, and that's so no, I didn't obviously meet Jack because I'm kind of new back to the hobby, so that never happened as far as crossing paths. Obviously, I'd heard of him and been familiar with the group that he was running. That's about all I can say about him, sadly. That's always a tragedy. We literally lost all of the men in both sides of my family within less than a year. My father, my stepfather, my mom's brother. And technically all three of them were sort of sudden and unexpected, which is also weird. None of these people were overtly sick. The stepfather had some issues with Parkinson's. But anyway, media. So my first jam, and the one that has the most affinity, I'm going to bring up a couple other ones just because I've got to mess with them. Was definitely cassette, and let me give a bit of background. My family, I grew up in the area. I don't sound like I was born and raised in Irwin and Greenville, and so I remember when Texas Instruments was in Johnson City, and I had family members working there. But so long story short, all my parents, grandparents were either educators, engineers for the railroad. I had an engineer who was an electrical engineer who worked for TI and all these companies, and went to Tennessee Tech. Long story short, and let me get a reset before I get rambly. So I've been around, like, early forms of everything. Like, obviously, reel-to-reel was technically the first recordable media form I had seen and was exposed to that people had. But cassettes, even though brand new in the early 70s as a format, because obviously 8-track was the popular and maybe even better format for fidelity at the time. Cassette was new, and my uncle had a very small handheld portable cassette recorder that we had all kinds of really mundane by today's standards, but all kinds of good times and fun with that little cassette recorder. But fast forward a few years, also a true story, the very first kit computer ever built with a friend of mine and his father after I'd moved from Tennessee to California was roughly 1978, and that was a Poly 88 kit computer with a cassette drive and 4K of RAM. And I don't know, it was kind of a small group for any of these people to maybe even know what that was. But it was based on the old Intel 8088, which is a predecessor to literally all the CPUs that we're still using today. That was before even DOS was a thing. But my only other weird media forms I latched onto was zip drives, because that was a high capacity way to store stuff in the late 80s through the 90s and that era of computers. But yeah, so that's all I got about media. Let's see, we got to pass it off to, let's see, it's QSO4 or KD4. I can't see because I need to zoom this up because this monitor is garbage. I'm taking way too long. I made it mini. Let me get a reset and I'll figure out if I'm past that too. Okay, it is KD4WNX from KO4GQQ.
Well, thank you, sir. This is KD4WMX in Quiet Lodi. And I did have the pleasure of meeting Jack. And to say he was a fine man is an understatement. He always had a smile on his face and would always speak. And I know he had some health issues, but to say he'll be missed is an understatement, because he was just a fine man. And that's all. Quit on that, because I'll get choked up. But as far as music goes, I'm a die-hard Hank Williams Jr. fan. I've got many cassettes of him, and of course Willie Nelson, Dave Allen Coe, all the good country singers is what I listened to. Didn't do much heavy metal. I stuck to my country. But not much report here. I'll just say 7-3, and I get the pleasure of turning it to K1 WVA, a fine gentleman from West Virginia. Go ahead.
Okay, Ken, thank you. This is K1WVA, Dave, located in Clarksburg, West Virginia. Missed the net for a few weeks. Couldn't find it. And then I finally got smart and went to NetLogger and found it this evening. Anyhow, didn't know Jack, obviously, me being from north central West Virginia. But music, you wouldn't believe the vinyl I've got in boxes up in the attic. No turntable, but Probably worth some money, and my music has changed over the years. I've got platters and stuff like that, vinyl, and then I started listening to country and western, Buck Owens, and I forget Conway Twitty, Loretta Lynn, all that, and anyhow, I don't listen to quite as much music anymore. And 8-track, I've had them, but I don't know what I did, threw them away or whatever, and was never into cassette. Anyhow, that's all I've got for the net this evening. Let's see, I'm going to turn it over to KW4AG, Dennis.
Are you still there, Dennis? KW4AG. Okay, Dennis, yeah, I'm not sure if you came through on the wires X side, but I got you on the FCS reflector there. Up next is KA8YEZ, Matt.
I am. So again, you there, boss, on that. Didn't hear Dennis on the wires X side. Didn't make it through. Sympathies to everybody down your way for the passing. I didn't know him, but sounded like a real good guy. As far as topic for the night, didn't own all that many records or got a few tapes. I guess the first record that I really liked is actually was ended up being was my mom's. It was Herb Albert and the Tijuana Brass. And as far as the cassette tape that I listened to the most, I forget the name of it. It's still around here someplace. It's some Huey Lewis. I listen to a lot of stuff. As long as it's not elevator music, and as long as it's not rap. I have different modes. I usually listen to old-time rock, classic rock when I'm working, and I can listen to country live, but I can't work to it. And don't forget about the Country Roads Net, Thursday night, 8 p.m. on West Virginia Link Room, 46488. And this weekend's Scouts Jamboree on the air. Olympic and Halo Amateur Club will be set up, and putting on HF and having the station on the West Virginia Link Room. So hopefully we'll get some Scouts coming, and hopefully we'll get some people around for Scouts to talk to. That's about it. Thanks for it all. Have a good rest of the week. KA8YZ.
Okay, up next was KD4 CCO.
Good evening, everybody on the net. It's quiet around here tonight. Not much going on. Temperature is 48 degrees. And we're all going to miss Jack, that's for sure. I especially missed him because he helped me with the club quite a bit. In fact, he was one of the officers of the club for several years there. And when he gave up his officer position, I can't remember, I think it was vice president. He might even been president at one time. Don't really remember what his title was. But a lot of the pictures that he had collected and several things that club related, he passed on to me when I became president of the club. And I've still got them here at the house. I guess I ought to bring them to, if we ever have a meeting, a face-to-face meeting, I need to bring them and show them to the folks that may not have known him. He was a fine feller for sure. When we had a field day or some kind of an activity, he was always there, always ready to help, and so forth and so on. So we'll never forget Jack. When it comes down to music, I did a lot of stuff with cassettes, 8-track, and I still got a CD player or 2 or 3 or 4 or whatever. I don't have that many CDs anymore, but I do have a few. One of my favorites was Simon and Garfunkel, Bridge Over Troubled Waters. I've got that one, and also liked a lot of the Beach Boys stuff. Jan and Dean. If it had anything to do with the car, I'll listen to it till I wore it out. And so I guess that's about it from down here in Bristol way tonight. We'll turn it back to over to net control. Well, not net control, but W4 DWN. Nick, Joe Alley. Go ahead, Nick. This is KD4 CCO.
Good evening, everybody. This is W4 DWN. The first time I met Jack, always the smile and the welcoming that I received from him, and every time I seen him, it was always like that. I'll never forget how he made you feel welcome, like he had been around and part of the group forever. It was the first time I ever went to one of the meetings and seen Jack. Didn't get to know him as well as a lot of everybody else did, but what time I was around him, you could tell he was a genuine good guy. I definitely hated to hear of his passing. Going to the radio side, I can remember had a 73 Monte Carlo and had an 8-track player in it, and the driver's seat and passenger seat would swivel to the outside. So I thought I was in high cotton with that car. Had a suitcase full of 8-tracks, and I actually had one red Skywarn, and a lot of them Dad had, Lord Lynn, and different ones like that. But that was, you always had one or two favorite ones that you'd play to death and keep hitting the button and get back to one or two songs you wanted to hear. But I won't hold it. I hope everybody has a good week. I'll say 73. It's W4 DWN, back to net control. All right, good deal. A lot of good information there, and I'll tell you what, you were in high cotton, Nick. I'd love to have that car and the 8-track player. And one of the awesome things about those 8-tracks, you could, or at least the stereo I had, you could hit that button for that track and go right to that song. That was a little ahead of its time when you think about having to search for one on a cassette. But I had a Chevrolet truck, and it had a cassette player in it, and you could, I forget what the name of it was, but you could hit a certain button on that, and it found that empty spot in that cassette between those songs, so you could go from one track to the other without having to, like, fast forward and listen for a second and then back up and and search. But that's the only cassette player I've ever seen like that. I've even got a stereo here at my house that still has like the dual cassette players on it, and it can't do that. But that one in that old truck that I had could do it. That was neat. All right, we're at the bottom of the list, so we'll see. Is there anyone else out there that would like to check in to the Tri-Cities Mountain Empire Fusion Net? Please call now.
K1KC Chris in Rockdale County, Georgia.
All right, we picked up K1KC, Chris. That's funny because I was typing your call sign in, and the first thing I looked at was the county when it popped up, and you gave it out as the county tonight. So I guess great minds think alike. But seems like we're in the twilight of the net tonight. So we'll go ahead and turn it over to you for some comments there. Go ahead, Chris.
All right, well, thank you, Adam. I don't go back as far as Black Cylinders or Shellacs, but I go back as far as 78 RPM records. And I think it was Ralph mentioned Gerard turntables and Utah speakers and Lafayette amps. That brought back a few memories. Actually, I had a 4-track player that preceded 8-track players. So if you're old enough to remember 8 tracks, you might remember 4 tracks. We also had mono tape recorders. I don't go back as far as wire recorders, but certainly went back as far as mono tape recorders, old woolen sack recorders, and magic eye tube on them and all that sort of thing. So love that audio. It's a bit of a shame to see the technology go by the wayside. Now we're on to digital formats or digital storage of music, which, you know, you got to keep taking your old stuff and putting it on the new stuff, and somehow it doesn't get completely moved over. Which I got 11 or 12,000 songs on iTunes. Now iTunes has changed a bit and kind of drives you a little bit bonkers trying to keep up with it all. So, but I've generally got all of those old machines there, so I can play my 8 tracks and my records and my cassettes if I want to. So, well, I guess that's about it there. K1KC.
Okay, Chris, thanks for checking in, and thanks for the comments. Yeah, come to think of it, I can play my cassettes. I have very few anywhere anymore. Most of what I've got on cassettes, I gave all my music cassettes away to my stepmom when I made the change over to CDs. I had a big case full of them, gave them all to her. About the only thing I have on cassettes anymore is things I've recorded of people or something of that nature. And I can cover the vinyl records, which I don't have any, but I've got the means of playing those. But I don't have an 8-track anywhere. I tell you, I'd love to find an old collection of those and go back through that again. I'm kind of like Chris there. I miss the sound. You know, the digital's a little crisper, I guess, or no flaws in the sound. But I don't know. There's something to be said or to be enjoyed with the sounds of some of those media, whatever you want to call it, that they made, and kind of miss those over the years. Miss the staticky AM stations sometimes, that kind of thing. Sometimes I like to just go over and listen to that in shortwave, even the music stations. All right, is there anyone else that would like to check in with us?
Got a quick additional comment.
Yeah, go ahead, David.
I just thought of this, even though it's on the Virginia side, and I like to tease them sometimes over there, but finally had a chance to see the birthplace of country music museum that they set up over there after they moved it out of the mall. It's great. If no one's seen it, you can do it in probably an hour and a half on the quick, maybe a little bit longer on the slow, but they've got some great gear. Obviously, old Victrolas, both cylinder and disc, pretty 78, all that stuff. It's just amazing. Good. It's a good little museum, worth the tour.
Yeah, and I definitely need to do that, David. I haven't been since they were in the mall, and my wife and I have been planning one of these days of trying to, when we can have a kid-free night, get a babysitter or whatever, an overnight babysitter, of actually going and staying in that new hotel that they built right there close by, and just to enjoy the amenities of that, just to be able to walk downtown and do things. And we could walk over to that museum too. So maybe when we get that little excursion underway, we'll get to check it out. I look forward to it. All right, this is N4NT with the Tri-Cities Mountain Empire Fusion Net. We'll give one more call for check-ins, or if anyone else has anything else, please call now.
K1KC would like to talk to KL1ZA, either in his room or his node, our room, or my node, or wherever.
Okay, yeah, I think Jim may just have a mobile radio. I don't know that he has a PDN or anything, but he could get. Well, we could switch the Bristol node over to yours and get him connected with you that way. But let's see if are you still there, Jim? KL1ZA. Yeah, Chris, he may have went inside. I know he goes out to his vehicle a lot of times to check in. I think he has his radio mounted mobile, and I don't think he has an HT or anything, which he could easily get into this repeater, the Bristol repeater from his house. He doesn't live far away from it, but that's probably what's happened with him there.
Roger, roger.
FCS4 RM. No little ones until you got them. I just looked over at my camera that I have in their room. They are passed out, both of them on the bed. So yeah, I'm gonna have to forego the Chase checking in tonight. Heard that. 84 RM slash. Sorry about that. I'll try to keep at least keep him up a little later next go around. All right. Well, with that being said, let's give one more. Let's ring the bell. Call it the last call here. Real quick before I do that, I'll make the quick announcements. Thanks, Matt, I believe it's Matt that for plugging the Country Roads Net. I usually try to do that. Also tomorrow night at 9 o'clock, 443.000 analog side mirrors. 443 net, and also in the Yard Dogs room there, K1KC is the proprietor of that piece of radio real estate. You can join him for his technical net tomorrow night at 9 o'clock p.m. at Eastern, all times Eastern, of course. And I'll say, of course, this room's in Chicago and it's Central Time Zone. But anyway. Those times are Eastern, and it is entirely possible to check into both nets. The Yard Dogs net usually lasts for 45 minutes to an hour, and the Mirrors net's usually done in about 15 or 20 minutes, so you can do like I do sometimes in moonlight. And our Kids Connection net, our next one is set for October the 24th at 7 o'clock p.m.
So be sure and join us for that, and that's Eastern time also, and that'll be right here at QSO America. So just want to once again thank the Mears Group for connecting the 443 repeater, and thank everyone that connects nodes and repeaters, and thank the Friends of Amateur Radio Group, FARG, for the use of QSO America. So before we close up, is there anything else, any other check-ins or anything else for the net? All right, and for the Bristol folks, I am going to try to get the Bristol room back online. We have been connecting the 6-7 repeater to QSO America, but keep in mind, even in the meantime, you can still connect to that node and change rooms and do things like we always did. We just don't have the HRI connected for the Bristol room. But once we get that back up, we can have the Bristol room, but we can still use this room as well. So, with that being said, we had a number 12 check-ins tonight, and let's see, we got Chris in there, so that made Georgia, so that made us 4 states represented, and one time we had 10 nodes connected. A lot of good information tonight. As always, with these topics, we always have a good quality net, and once again, we'd like to send our condolences to the family of WA4JME, this net tonight, dedicated in his honor and his memory. And with that, I will, this has been 4NT, closing the Tri-Cities Mountain Empire Fusion net at 10:16 p.m. And we'll return QSO America to its normal amateur use. 7-3, good night.